We have a special order of business today, and so we want to begin by taking sb649. Also want to say a couple comments before we begin and set up some ground rules. The Assembly's American with Disabilities Act coordinator has received multiple requests for accommodation from individuals wishing to participate in this hearing. In an attempt to accommodate as many individuals as possible without limiting access to the over 100 individuals here to participate who have not requested accommodation, I'll be allowing the following process for testimony related to sb649 only. After the authors present, we have not received any requests for accommodation in support of the bill. So I will afford 30 minutes of testimony, and we'll ask that you limit your testimony to no more than 2 minutes per person, or less if possible, to allow the most amount of participants in the allotted time frame possible. That's for the support. I'll also allow 30 minutes for the opposition. Again, asking that you limit your testimony to no more than 2 minutes per person, or less if possible, to allow for the most amount of people to participate. We'll begin with two individuals who have requested accommodation to limit their time in the room. When the 30 minutes are up, I will allow these three individuals who have requested an accommodation to testify via phone, and then be limited to 2 minutes each. So there's three other individuals. I want to be clear. There is. I wanted to try to be as fair as possible. So for the opposition, I want to ensure that there's 30 minutes of opposition. Two individuals outside of those 30 minutes have requested to be here for a limited amount of time, so we will give them 2 minutes. And then the other three individuals who will not be included in those 30 minutes of opposition, who will do it via telephone, and those people will be allowed 2 minutes. Those are the only accommodations that I'll be making that were noticed in advance. Then I will allow those in support who did not get to testify to enter their names into the record, followed by the opposition who did not get to testify. I appreciate your patience in this process. Additionally, as a courtesy to individuals who are electromagnetically sensitive, we ask that everyone please consider turning off their cell phones or putting in the airplane mode during the duration of the testimony of this bill. I want to thank everybody for their participation, and remind that we want to make sure that as many people as possible participate, and thank you to the committee members who are here. I want to begin, Mr. Wesso, if you would like to begin. We are ready to begin as a subcommittee, you understand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Can you hear me here? All right, very good. First of all, I want to begin by accepting the committee's suggested amendments. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and your staff for working with me on this bill. We've had quite amount of testimony in this bill. In the Senate, we had three hearings, really, two in my committee and another in local government, and this is now the second committee that's heard this in Assembly. Our last committee, we spent 3.5 hours, discussing this, and with all the articles that have come out in the paper, there's been quite a dialogue, and it's been a wonderful process. But what's important to me is that we've been able to present the merits of this bill. We've been able to reach out to the opposition of the bill, and in many cases make numerous amendments that have, in my view, addressed the concerns that they have presented. And I know that their opposition has not gone away, but we have been responsive to the arguments that they've made. And we've made numerous amendments to this bill, and ongoing, the ones that you've presented, and I'm sure there'll be more today. But our intent with this bill is to roll out a statewide program that's going to make California a leader in technology innovation, and we are that. It'll continue to make us that. But this is a very important bill to ensure that we provide the best and most high-level service, communication service to the people of our state in a way that contains costs. We want to make sure that those savings are passed on to the customers of this service while encouraging these important investments to be made in our state that are going to create jobs, that are going to help the people of our state contribute in the economy. So not only is this creating jobs in the unrolling of this service, but it's helping the people that tap into the service to participate in an economy in ways that are really historic and that are changing the way business gets done internationally. And I'm glad to state that we're part of a state that has shown a commitment to innovation and technology more than any other place in the world, and this bill will help us achieve those. We have, during this process, taken, as I mentioned, we've heard from the people concerned with this bill. I've had an open door policy in my office to anybody who wants to discuss it. We've heard the concerns, and we've been and we will continue to be responsive to any concerns that people have regarding with this bill. So, in deference to the enormous work before the committee today, I'm going to abbreviate my comments and let the presenters, the supporters, share some additional comments, and hopefully something that hasn't already been said in this exhaustive process.
I do want to remind everyone that, and I'll repeat the rules as we go along so that everybody understands them. We're going to go 30 minutes for witnesses in support. We are going to time that time, and so when we get close to, I'll maybe give you a reminder at 20, maybe give you a reminder at 10, and at 5 minutes thereabouts about how much time you have left. Speaking time will be the only time that we're actually running the clock on. And I want to remind you to limit your comments to 2 minutes in order to ensure that as many witnesses in support of are able to speak. And I may repeat that again down the line for the rest of the hearing. So you're welcome to begin with the witnesses. Now, bear in mind, I want to avoid a lot of movement in the committee. So what I would do, unless there is a real need to come up here and sit to present in support, just to limit the amount of movement. All those additional witnesses in support who are limited at 2 minutes can do it from the mic for no other reason than to avoid the movement of people that would delay this committee meeting much longer than it needs to be, unless there is a reason or a health concern or any reasonable accommodation that I need to make, but for no other reason, to keep the meeting moving. And I want to be clear about that. That okay with the support side?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. You may begin, and we are going to use the same rules on everybody in terms of timing. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you. Steve Carlson for CTIA. We're the National Trade Association for the Wireless Industry and sponsor of sb649. You have heard and will hear from my colleagues of the astonishing economic and social benefits of next-generation wireless technology to consumers, your constituents, businesses, and government. It will vastly improve the delivery of critical public goods and services, such as education, public safety, health care, economic development, job training, be the backbone for smart communities, and many more applications that we haven't even thought of yet. Although the bill lays the framework for the necessary deployment of more of our existing technology, 4G LTE, that next generation, 5G, will rely significantly on the small cell technology that is the subject of this bill and may be as important a component of our country's infrastructure as anything. California was the epicenter of the last Internet services revolution and can and should be the epicenter of the next one, and robust wireless networks will be its foundation. Yet, unlike other important infrastructures such as roads, electricity, and water, to name a few, that are financed by taxpayer dollars, the wireless network is completely private investment, from the purchase of spectrum to the build-out of the networks city by city across the United States. Because of the nature of small cells, small, unobtrusive, not at all like the towers we're used to dealing with, if they are treated the same way as large towers in the planning and permitting process, their deployment and the benefits will be delayed for all. That is why we are seeking a more streamlined process while preserving legitimate and important local government authority. 12 states have already passed legislation in this respect. Other countries are devoting hundreds of billions of dollars of public funds to build out their own 5G networks. SB 649 will move California, put it in its appropriate spot, and we urge your support.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Jesus Roman. I'm with Verizon. Our interest is in creating a balanced framework for the speedy deployment of small cells to address existing 4G LTE capacity challenges created by exploding demand and to facilitate the deployment of thousands of 5G small cells as that technology becomes available. But to be clear, SB 649 is not just about laying the groundwork for 5G small cells, which even with this bill will require further negotiations with the cities to agree on a rate that will enable the cost-effective deployment of this emerging technology. It is about 4G LTE small cells that operate in tandem with macro cells. The exploding demand on mobile broadband is limiting the effectiveness of macro cells that provide 4G LTE service. This means slower speeds or no speeds. It means drop calls at peak usage times. The deployment of small cell principally helps to ease the burden on macro cells so that the customers not experience these frustrating problems. It is critical to understand that SB 649 facilitates carriers' ability to deploy workable networks. Again, macro cells work in tandem with small cells. So Verizon would like to, for example, triple the number of macro cells in Lake County, more than double them in Sonoma County, while increasing the number of small cells by a factor of 18 in Sonoma County to ease the burdens on macro cells. Verizon has similar plans throughout California. The pace and success of these plans depend on external factors outside of our control, such as local permitting requirements and costs, which too often are a barrier to speedy or sustainable deployment, which is why we need this bill. The more favorable the regulatory and cost conditions, the more we will be able to deploy as planned. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bill Devine and I represent AT&T. I am here today also in support of SB 649. Building small cell infrastructure is a matter of statewide importance. This year is a year of infrastructure here in the legislature. Major bills on water, housing, and transportation are all on the agenda. SB 649 is an infrastructure bill as well. But unlike other infrastructure challenges facing California, the wireless industry is prepared to invest billions of dollars to build small cells and 5G networks. We're not seeking a government subsidy. We are not seeking tax breaks. Rather, 649 advances the deployment of this new technology and its economic benefits in three ways. First, the bill ensures that small cells are the subject to the same proven permitting standards that have been in place for communications infrastructure in the public rights-of-way. Second, the bill secures access to city infrastructure, such as street lamps in the public right-of-way, on reasonable terms and conditions. And third, the bill establishes annual fees, allowing cities full cost recovery, plus an additional annual charge of $250 for each small cell attachment. We believe this legislation strikes the right balance between the city's interest in managing their property in the right-of-way and the public interest in gaining access to the next generation wireless technology. We are in the midst of a revolution, a technology revolution. With these new capabilities and the imagination of California entrepreneurs, who knows what the next big innovation will be? I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Macedo. I am the Undersheriff for the Lake County Sheriff's Office. Lake County in 2015 suffered the third worst wildfire damage in the history of the state of California. As part of my job as the Undersheriff, I'm also the Deputy Director of Emergency Services for Lake County. During these wildland fires, first responders attempted to make notice of evacuations to folks by using our mass telephonic notification system, which makes robocalls to landlines as well as cell phones for those folks that sign up for that particular service. There was 4 fatalities in that particular fire, and landline telephones went down quickly with the fires knocking the lines down. The technology in cell phones is a little bit more robust as far as the ability to withstand some of these types of fires than those. I'm here also on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association asking for support on this. We use this technology all the time. We have computers in our cars, which allows the public safety officers, both deputy sheriffs, peace officers, and firefighters to do their jobs much more safely by being able to look at real-time maps and try to perform strategies in the event there's a disaster. California, unfortunately, as we've seen over the last few years, has become very disaster-prone, and our experiences during the Valley fires that we had in 2015, our cell phone providers came in and assisted us with technology that allowed our officers to do their job much more safe. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Laura Bennett with TechNet. Breakthroughs in wireline and Wi-Fi wireless technology have revolutionized communications in our country and enabled Americans' innovation economy to flourish. More and more state, nation, and global community rely on a robust broadband network. The advancement of innovations like 5G and Wi-Fi hotspots will enable the evolution of smart cities, which includes traffic plan management, smart lighting, autonomous vehicles, and public safety. SB649 would promote a variety of wireless technologies that would streamline time-consuming and expensive permitting process for deploying small cells while supporting technology-neutral policies that protect existing investment and advance innovation. To continue to make California the 7th largest economy in the world, we need to not only support current infrastructure and networks, but also break down barriers to investment and encourage and facilitate technology deployment in every way possible. For these reasons, we urge an aye vote on 649.
I'm going to take additional witnesses and support, also limited at 2 minutes apiece. If somebody needs to sit down, we want to make reasonable accommodation. I'm going to go ahead and remind everybody when their 30 seconds are up. I didn't do it earlier, but I want to start now, and so I can tie it up at 2 minutes. And we have 20 minutes left of support positions. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is C.C. Ian, the founder and chair of APAPA, AP American Public Affairs Association. Our mission is to promote the advancement of AP Americans through active participation in civic and public affairs. And Asian Americans rely heavily on the mobile communication technology and the policy for effective and fast communication to carry out our educational programs. And we believe SB 649 will help AP Americans in the more effective communication issue for our education to encourage more active participation in the civic and public affairs. Therefore, I'm here to ask for your support of SB 649. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Eric Harris with the California NAACP, the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People. We are here today in support of SB 649. Today's technology is allowing people to be more connected than ever. However, as technologies such as high-speed internet and mobile services continue to advance, we must ensure that a lack of access to technology is not a barrier for minority communities. The African American community has overwhelmingly chosen mobile communication as a preferred method of communication. In fact, 92% of African American adults are cell phone owners and 56% own a smartphone of some kind. The NAACP supports SB 649 because it allows providers to push more needed resources into advanced technologies like small cells so that investments can be made in our communities. California needs public policy that assists in the proliferation of advanced technologies for underrepresented communities of color. SB 649 is a great example of such policy. We urge your support of SB 649. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Mr. Chairman, members, Randy Perry with Aaron Reed and Associates on behalf of PORAC. I apologize, I was downstairs testifying. We're in full support of the bill. and hope that you can take a look at it and pass it today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I am Casey Zillard, and with me is Bob Benson, and we represent the California Disability Senior Community Action Network and Choices Person-Centered Services. CDCAN is a statewide, nonpartisan network of tens of thousands of people with disabilities, seniors, mental health needs, their families, and community organizations. CDCAN for 20 years provides reports and information to tens of thousands of people and policymakers on disability and senior rights related to individuals with disabilities, mental health needs, seniors, families, and low-income support workers. Choices Person-Centered Services is a Northern California nonprofit community-based organization providing services to people with developmental disabilities for over 25 years. We strongly support SB 649 because we believe it will help Californians with disabilities, their families, and low-income support workers have access to the most advanced mobile broadband networks possible. The access is critical to these most vulnerable communities. This bill helps promote long-term investment towards building the foundation for mobile communications that is needed and we believe will help increase access to our communities. A basic right of people with disabilities, especially developmental disabilities, is a right to live in their homes with needed supports and services. This includes access not only to housing, transportation,
30 seconds,
long-term services and supports and healthcare, but access to broadband networks, including the most advanced broadband networks that are critical in exchanging vital information and improving quality of life that helps people stay in contact with other people and avoid isolation. We urge your support for SB 649. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, good afternoon. Julian Canetti. I'm Director of Public Policy for both the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce and the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce. Cal Asian represents the interests of the over 600,000 Asian Pacific Islander businesses located here in California, as well as our local chamber, the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce, represents Asian Pacific Islander small businesses and small businesses throughout the 6-county capital region. Those counties being Sacramento, Yuba, Yolo, Sutter, El Dorado, and Placer. Part of our role is to advocate on behalf of our members to support policies and programs that will help California's small business community reach new markets and provide growth opportunities. Both chambers are here today in support of SB 649. Our members understand that both our state and local economies are built on our community of small businesses. We have a little saying that when small business wins, we all win. We all understand that technology is continuing to evolve and the way in which our businesses connect with their customers. We are here today to support smart policy that promotes an environment where private companies will invest more heavily into our wireless communications infrastructure. Growing California small businesses and entrepreneurs depend on mobile broadband services to create innovative products and services. Furthermore, deploying small cell technologies will improve access to educational and economic opportunities for all Californians. We fully support SB 649 and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Dave Roberts, and I'm the fire chief serving the communities of El Dorado Hills, Rescue, and Latrobe. My fire service and emergency services career spanned over 30 years, and prior to that, I spent 15 years in the high-tech industry. I believe that history kind of gives me a little unique perspective, and I'm here to support 649. As many of you already know, public safety agencies like the El Dorado Hills Fire Department rely heavily on communications technologies to carry out our daily mission of protecting lives and saving property. Like it or not, your emergency services are now driven by technology. As a matter of fact, we've been able to shave off time off our response times over the years because of technology. Today, as you know, 75% of 911 calls are made using wireless technology. Upgrades to the wireless technology networks will have a direct and immediate benefit for public safety officials, first responders, and the public. Namely, the capability of supporting a future 5G network with small cell infrastructure, which will be 10 times faster than the 4G and support 100 times more devices than today's networks. This means there is a real possibility that the response times will be even faster and the locating of those in need will be much more accurate. Keep in mind that just a 60-second improvement in emergency response times translates to an 8% reduction in mortality when related to critical EMS calls. And considering that the fire doubles in size every 60 seconds, every moment shaved off a fire response equates to a significant increase in our ability to save lives and protect property, not to mention exponentially increasing on-scene firefighter safety. 5G and future technologies supported by small cell infrastructure will enable breakthrough motivations in public safety and disaster response, supporting all emergency service providers. Senate Bill 649 will help make our cities safer by providing the public safety community with enhanced tools and resources, especially during times of natural disasters. And as each of you are uniquely qualified and aware, in California, man-made and natural disasters happen anywhere at any time. And a robust 5G network supported by small cells would provide first responders with a redundant infrastructure, allowing access to the information they need when they need it to save lives. We thank the Senator for introducing this important bill, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Just want to make a quick comment that we have a little bit less than 13 minutes left, so the longer you take, the less amount of people speak in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lori Kammerer on behalf of the National Association of Women Business Owners, California chapter. We thank the Senator for introducing this bill. We represent about 1.3 million small businesses, women-owned businesses, and also level 2 and 3s, which are also the larger businesses owned by women. This is a bill that is good for business. It's for business, by business. We think that the bill is very important as small businesses, as women business owners, because everything we do is with our cell. Everything we do is through technology, and we really believe that this bill will help small business and promote the especially women's owned businesses. We urge your support. Thank you.
My name is Gary McDonald. I'm the Executive Director of Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center. I'm also on the Economic Development Committee in Lincoln, California. We serve over 3,000 low-income people every year in our services. Half of them are children. Unless this bill passes, many of the families we serve will not be able to afford the critical services they need to be successful in life and in school. Thank you. We're in strong support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Darcy Barno, Junior Special Assistant to the President and CEO of the Greater Sacramento Urban League. The Greater Sacramento Urban League is proud to support SB 649. The Sacramento Urban League provides underserved youth and adults with education, job training, and placement opportunities for them to achieve economic self-reliance. Our young students understand that they need new skills so they can gain employment in a knowledge-based, technology-driven economy. We currently offer a program called Youth Empower for Success, which is designed to encourage youth to discover positive pathways to education and training that lead to high demanding careers. The program has a dual emphasis on youth leadership development and workforce development. The youth development component focuses on leadership skills, civic engagement, and the ability to adapt and to fit into a company's culture. We understand the need to invest in advanced mobile technologies so we can provide our students with the latest tools and technologies to achieve academic and career success. SB 649 will help increase access to education and job training through advanced wireless networks. We ask for your support for SB 649 to increase educational and employment opportunities here in Sacramento. Thank you for providing us with the opportunity to share our thoughts, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Just want to remind folks we have less than 10 minutes, so, and that's to try to accommodate as many support. So if you want more support folks to talk, maybe lessen the amount of time we talk. Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Linda Ng, representing OCA Sacramento, Asian Pacific Americans Advocates. With our headquarters in Washington, D.C., and 100 chapters and affiliates over the nations, we are in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Kim Reinhelder. I'm the president of Eschaton Foundation. For those of you who do not know Eschaton Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization who believe that seniors matter. We believe that seniors are visible, not invisible. We believe that as they age, they get more courageous and bolder, and we believe in alleviating loneliness. The fastest growing age group in California is 85 years and older. Many are vibrant, active, and they are adopting new technologies at very fast rates, and I believe this growing group of our population will benefit most from G5 technology. Among the technologies that support the safety and well-being of our seniors are smartphones and tablets, wearable devices, and the immense number of innovative technologies introduced to this population every day, all to help them remain independent and safe for as long as possible. Whether it's telehealth, driverless cars, or new wellness and prevention opportunities, I believe seniors will embrace and demand these advancements. For these reasons, we support SB 649. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Mark Lester. I represent the Lincoln Area Chamber of Commerce as president and also the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce as a board member. Both chambers are in support of SB 649. Mobile technology is a major part of California's small businesses' success. Many of our local business members heavily rely on their smartphones, tablets, which continue to replace wired devices at a rapid pace. Mobile broadband provides seemingly endless opportunities for businesses and consumers to connect with one another. It makes networking between businesses easier and more effective than ever. This means that mobile networks must be able to keep up with the user demand. Both the Lincoln Area Chamber of Commerce and the El Dorado Chamber of Commerce support SB 649. Because of public policy, it's good for business. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Susan Peterson-Lipper, supporting not only for T-Mobile, but also for our consumers who have a voracious appetite for data, for the jobs this bill will create, and for the services it's going to support not only in the future, but right away. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brenda Palomino here on behalf of Sprint. Pleased to be in support of this bill. And I think just by way of the diverse supporters that you've heard from, you can see the vast benefits that this bill will provide. We hope that California joins the over dozen states that have already enacted similar legislation. We respectfully urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Joanne Betancourt, representing the Wireless Infrastructure Association in support. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Nikki Newsom. I am the COO with the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation, and we are in strong support of SB 649. We are working to market Fresno County and California as a premier location for business prosperity, and SB 649 supports that effort. One, by allowing our businesses to grow the economy, but also for them to make their customers' lives better. This access to reliable broadband, as well as the high speed, the most cutting edge technology and wireless connectivity, helps us to be competitive in the global market. Our CEO, Leanne Eager, just returned a few weeks ago from Select USA, where we had over 40 qualified leads of foreign companies that are ready to invest in California and specifically Fresno County, which would bring thousands of jobs to our area, which you all know, I'm sure, is a huge need. And when we are bringing these 40 companies back to Fresno County, that accessibility and this speed is extremely important to us staying competitive and landing those jobs here in California and not elsewhere. For that reason, I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Kathleen Price. I'm the Chief Development Officer for the EPU Children's Center located in Fresno, California. EPU turned 41 this year, and we currently see 1,000 children each week that are born with developmental delays, medical issues, or born into families in crisis. Critical to the support of outcomes for these children is parent education and information. At the EPU Children's Center, we provide parent education over a 13-county area in Central California. The majority of our EPU parents access this information through their mobile devices. We urge you to support SB 649 and bring the innovative technology that the Valley needs to the Central Valley so that we can continue our work to keep children safe, sound, and families healthy and strong. Thank you.
I want to make a quick announcement that we have less than 5 minutes left.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee. My name is Pao Yang, Executive Director for the Fresno Center for New Americans. We are in support of SB 649. We service all New Americans in Fresno County, which consists of close to 1 million residents. So we are in a strong support of it. I encourage you to also support it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Francisco Medina with the Sacramento Metro Chamber of Commerce. We represent the greater capital region as well as 1,700 businesses in the area, and we support SB 649.
Good afternoon. My name is Sergey Terepkov. I'm president of Slavic American Chamber of Commerce. We're a statewide membership-based business organization. We're in strong support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Daria, and I represent a statewide nonprofit organization called Council for Cross-Cultural Affairs, and we represent and serve over 1 million Russian-speaking Californians, and we support SB 649. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sergey Ivanikov, Russian American Media, I'm CEO, and representing Russian-speaking community of the state of California. We support this bill. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Phil McDougall, and on behalf of St. John's Program for Real Change and the thousands of women that have gone through the program, homeless women and children, the 250 homeless women and children on a wait list every night, and the thousands are in the community that depend on this technology, we strongly support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chi Chang with Society for the Blind, and we strongly support this bill.
I'm Niall Mitta with Hacker Lab Co-working Makerspaces. Innovation only happens where the technology exists to make that possible. This bill would give us the technology to make that possible and help us become the forefront of innovation in the world. So thank you.
Henry Contreras with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. We are in support.
Kook Fan on behalf of Small Business California and Wireless Infrastructure Association. We're in support of the bill.
Ann Bolany of Sonoma County, yes on this bill.
Josefina Hurtado with Puertas Abiertas in Napa. We strongly support this bill.
Amy Fabi with the Chinese American Association of Solano County. We are supportive of this bill.
I'm Lester Polisky. I'm with the Impact Venture Capital Group. We strongly support SB 469.
Aziza Davis-Goins, President and CEO for the Sacramento Black Chamber of Commerce. We strongly support this bill and hope that you will too.
Debbie Barrios, small business owner in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. I strongly support SB 649. Thank you.
My name's Raquel Shippey. I'm from Santa Rosa, and I'm in strong support of SB 649. Thank you.
Marcus Cadero, resident of Sonoma County. I support this bill.
We still have 2 minutes left. For fairness, the author can continue their testament if they prefer.
I think we're fine. Mr. Chair and members, Greg Cook, representing Northern California Power Agency. With the amendments accepted this afternoon, we withdraw our opposition. Thank you.
Now, what we're going to do is witnesses in opposition. I would ask the author to remain at the table, would ask the main sponsor to remain at the table, and would kindly ask all the rest of the support witnesses to please vacate the table. I want to announce and reminder, and if you can remain as quiet as you possibly can. I said at the beginning of this meeting that I had two people who I was going to reasonably accommodate as an ADA requirement. Who are those two individuals? If the sergeants would bring those two individuals up, I would greatly appreciate it. I want to remind those two individuals that after their testimony for 2 minutes at a time, I'm going to ask them to then vacate the table as well. Is there? Yeah. Those two individuals who are reasonably be accommodated for ADA reasons may approach the table. Ma'am, after your testimony and the other individuals, should they be here, then I'll ask you to vacate the table, please. Thank you. You may begin.
Okay.
And I just want to remind you, I limit you to 2 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Renette Senham, and I'm a current City Council member and former mayor of Nevada City, California. And I speak with you as an elected official and as an early adopter of wireless technology, as I had opened the first cellular phone store in Nevada County in 1990. However, I've learned enough about 5G technology that I cannot support its expansion, particularly not SB649. So today I speak about this bill through the eyes of local authority. Our local governments typically encourage new technology based on claims it will improve the quality of life for its businesses and residents. However, this proposal goes too far by requiring local government to approve these small cells, macro cells, and large power supplies in all land use zones, including private property, barring the public from decisions that will dramatically adversely affect the aesthetics of community, property values, property tax, and quality of our constituents' health and environment. Simply put, SB 649 is a Pandora's box for California cities, one that blatantly strips local government of the authority to protect the quality of life of our residents, their environment, and the public right of way. The de facto exemption of CEQA sets a very dangerous precedent, opening the door for any other industry to annihilate a local government control in order to deploy any kind of corporate undertaking without public or elected officials' consent or lease agreement of publicly owned property, a dangerous condition of public property. SB 649 utilizes eminent domain for its hostile takeover of our communities and is unconstitutional. The 5G network is being deployed with very limited standards, no monitoring, and without protective agency oversight. It is also a violation of the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. Governments and representatives, including assembly members and myself, have a responsibility to protect the quality of life of our constituents, protect public property and the public right-of-way, and stop this corporate overreach. This bill throws every human, even our honeybees, our birds, our agriculture, our animals, and our wildlife under the bus for unabated control of our communities by the telecom industry. Lastly, Senator Hueso has stated numerous times that this is what the telecom industry customers want.
Time's up, ma'am. But
Californians know not to pass this and to reject it. Thank you very much.
May we actually go right to a phone call? Someone has to go to the airport. 2:45, they said they could call her right now.
No, we've already set the way we're doing this meeting, so you may testify for 2 minutes if you wish.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. My name is Paul McGavin from Scientists for Wired Technology. I'm speaking on behalf of an estimated 1 to 4 million Californians who have an environmentally induced illness. That's a catch-all term called electromagnetic sensitivity. Over 250 people filled out forms on our website over 3 days opposing SB 649 because they will be forced out of their homes if these microwave transmitters go in front of their homes. Electromagnetic sensitivity is a federally recognized disabled characteristic since 2002. The Assembly has also recognized this disability by allowing this accommodation in today's hearing. Many pleases and thank yous echo in this building, but there is nothing polite about SB 649. This bill violently disrespects every city, county, and resident of California, while it shoves upon us unneeded wireless radiation 24/7 in residential zones where we live, sleep, and heal. Unneeded because wireless coverage is complete. 98% of all Californians can already make calls and texts with microwave transmitters 200 feet in the air, thousands of feet away, to give an appropriate level of microwave radiation to make a call or a text. What we're talking about is deploying hazardous microwave radiation in our neighborhoods 10 to 50 feet from our homes, and it's unconstitutional. It directly undermines the inalienable rights inscribed in the U.S. and federal constitutions that you all took oaths to serve.
30 seconds.
Note, too, that wired fiber optic connections were not only promised to telecom customers, but already paid for in our phone bills as a matter of public contract. SB649 violates that contract. SB649 also creates a dangerous condition of public property and will be struck down in the courts in a matter of weeks, just as it was in Ohio. How embarrassing for any legislator who would vote for this bill. Last Friday, each of the 80 California Assembly members received a hand delivery and priority mail of this legal notice stating mass casualties are likely in districts 1 through 80 from passage of SB 649. You have each read this notice.
Sergeants, please remind the gentleman the time's up. Thank you. Now we're going to go to witnesses in opposition. As stated earlier, there will be 30 minutes of witnesses in opposition. We're making a reasonable accommodation at the table. The rest of the witnesses in line order may fill up the seats. I remind any of the witnesses that you are limited to 2 minutes. The longer you take, the less amount of opposition witnesses would be able to testify within this 30 minutes. And we're going to go ahead and begin the timer the moment the first speaker in opposition begins to speak.
My name is Gerald Mitchell. I live in Rockland, California. Distinguished hearing members, I first want to thank you for taking on this serious public health issue. I was a company CEO, and Yahoo Finance named me one of the top 100 marketing minds in America. After holding a cell phone to my right temple for several hours a day, I began having headaches, and subsequently a lemon-sized tumor was found. When they went in, you'll notice the black area there of my brain. That is a GBM brain tumor. It also took down Edward Kennedy, Joe Biden, and your dear associate, Ira Ruskin. According to the experts at UCSF, there is no remission once you have one of these. I live with a daily fear that self-service radiation will induce recurrent growth and take my life. A tower outside my home is disastrous for me. I have the ability to turn off my cell phone, but I can't control a highly powerful cell tower nearby my home that generates a very strong signal 24/7. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is already overwhelming. New studies are emerging weekly. These transmissions cause cancer. You're already in the crosshairs of the media, and it's growing daily. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, your positions require great courage. I hope that you safeguard the constituents that you represent. 649 is not the answer, but I'm confident that you'll find it. You'll come up with a creative solution that allows continued monitoring by communities as part of the regulatory process. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Time's up. Thank you. I'm going to start. I will start from furthest closest to me and then work our way down. And remind everybody 2 minutes, and I'll remind you at the 30-second mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Ronnie Verdugo here on behalf of the League of California Cities. And over 215 cities officially opposed to SB 649. That number keeps climbing. The SACB, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, San Jose Mercury News, and other major papers in the state, Real News, have weighed in against this bill as well, and here's why. SB 649 makes at least 3 key changes to existing law, the following 2 of which are unprecedented. The first thing, it forces cities and counties to lease out their public property for wireless equipment essentially everywhere within our boundaries. That's unprecedented. We've never been asked to do that as local governments. The second thing that the bill does, which is equally unprecedented, is it eliminates the ability for local governments to lease out their public property space at market rates. And instead, it places a $250 cap on what they call an attachment charge for the small cell installation. By eliminating discretionary permits, the third key change this bill makes is equally troubling and sweeping because A, it eliminates public input by using encroachment and building permits instead of discretionary ones. B, it eliminates discretion for cities to impose conditions for public benefits. It specifically prohibits in-kind conditions for issuing a permit, such as free Wi-Fi in public parks, as a condition of the permit. And then C, it eliminates the ability to remove equipment that is blighting your neighborhoods. Even if every single resident within your jurisdiction complained about a particular small cell, there's no recourse in this bill to take that particular piece of equipment down.
30 seconds.
These permitting changes are significant because the bill allows for antennas as large as 6 cubic feet, associated ground-mounted equipment totaling a whopping 35 cubic feet or the size of a commercial refrigerator, with no size or quantity limitations for what they call ancillary equipment. Cities have a responsibility to protect our public property and to condition fair use over taxpayer assets. Unlike the wireless industry, cities are not driven by profit, but by the public services that we strive to deliver, such as police, fire, infrastructure, and parks. Despite promises made by the wireless industry, this bill does nothing to require the technology meet 5G, that it gets deployed to unserved and underserved areas of the state, and that those cost savings are passed on to their customers. The bill is a clear overreach. Want to urge your vote, strongly urge your no vote on this bill.
Omar Masri, representing the American Planning Association with extensive experience in wireless permitting in both Orange County and San Francisco. Our members are responsible for processing permits, ensuring that our residents have access to robust and competitive wireless access, while still protecting our community by ensuring appropriate noise, safety, and design standards are met. SB 649 restricts our ability to do so in any way that is meaningful and will eliminate the collaborative process necessary to achieve common sense siting design standards. For example, in the first photo before you, this is what SB 649 would allow: large and bulky cabinets, whether on the pole or on the ground, with no limits on noise from cooling fans that can sometimes sound like a washing machine right outside your bedroom window. The second photo shows the type of small cells that have been deployed in thousands in San Francisco, Orange County, San Diego, and other cities, with truly small cells that are quiet. But this only occurs because of local discretion. Under SB 649, these permits are ministerial, and applying any real sensible noise, design, or height standards is simply not possible. While the bill says feasible design and co-location standards can be applied, who determines what's feasible? Local governments or carriers? I've seen carriers demand the right to put up 120-foot tall poles on sidewalks, arguing that this was necessary to save money on fiber optic backhaul. Building and encroachment permits don't give local discretion the ability to request changes to design or maybe move a few feet from somebody's bedroom window to a different pole. And I would also point out, under a separate federal rule known as 6409, the minute a site is built, the carrier can come back and add 6 feet of height, 10 feet of height, 6-foot standoff arms, more equipment, including diesel generators on the ground or sidewalk next to the pole. Aesthetics or cabinets next to driveways are extremely important. We're talking about permitting 30 to 50,000 small cells statewide. So it's important we do it right. SB 649 goes beyond streamlining, hampers our ability to adequately protect the aesthetics of our communities, and we continue to question the need to raise this bill forward when 5G technology isn't even ready yet. For those reasons, we urge a no vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Santiago and committee members. My name is Margaret McAustin. I'm a city council member from Pasadena. I reside in Assemblymember Holden's district. I'm testifying here today in opposition to this bill. Many of you may have started in government like me as a city council member and remember what it is like to continually fight for local control. California cities pride themselves on their unique characteristics, and it is through local control that we maintain those unique characteristics. This bill eliminates local control. I and my colleagues in over 200 cities will lose the ability to be responsive to our constituents. When one neighborhood, for example, if an historic district does not have these cell towers and a neighboring neighborhood is blighted with an excessive number of them, how can we respond to that neighborhood? We have no ability under this bill to be responsive to our constituents, to have them properly cited, to have them properly sized, or to see that one neighborhood is not improperly disaffected with 35 cubic feet boxes than another. Please don't take away the ability for me and my colleagues to be responsive to our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Cyrus Devers with the Protect Our Local Streets Lobbying Coalition. We are opposed unless amended. I believe we're the only two that have actually offered amendments. And so the purpose of the amendments is that there's an assumption that if this bill is passed, that wireless carriers will have low rents and access to street lights, and that local governments will have no choice. In fact, there's an alternative. Cities and counties can actually sell off their street lights to non-governmental associations, avoid the restrictions under 649. If they're clever, probably avoid the restrictions under permit streamlining under current law, and probably even increase their revenues. So the unintended consequences of this bill is that you will make this alternative irresistibly attractive to cities that perhaps wouldn't otherwise consider doing this. So this coalition broke with the main body of the opposition, decided to work on amendments, and the amendments are designed or intended to perhaps reduce some of the motivation to pursue this alternative. We offer only two. There are multiple problems with the bill, but we thought two of the ones that are the most serious would at least help the cause. One, clarify the authority over discretionary review of the small cells. That, and to not close a loophole, but mitigate a loophole from the 2006 video services bill called DIVCA, which created a carve-out for wireless services. We thought if we did something to mitigate that carve-out, which was nobody intended would allow at the time that wireless companies would be able to offer video services. This is something unanticipated 11 years ago. We thought, though, if we addressed those two issues in amendments that we gave to the committee and the author, that perhaps this would back off some of the motivation.
30 seconds.
So Best and Krieger has already been approached by one association who wants to get into the business of owning and leasing space on streetlights, and we have already issued a legal alert to some of our clients of the need to consider this option should this bill pass. We're hoping if these amendments are considered, we can avoid some of these consequences. Thank you.
Just want to remind everyone that we have about 20 minutes left in the opposition witness area. Let me continue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Rex Bone, Supervisor, Humboldt County, 1st District. Also the Vice Chair of Rural County Representatives, California. I am here to speak in strong opposition to SB 649. In rural areas where we struggle for the lack of adequate resources that many in urban areas take for granted, including access to quality broadband service. Living in a broadband unserved or underserved area, Humboldt County has about a 20% land mass that would love to have 1G or even see what a 1G looks like. We have a difficult time enticing industry to our already economically challenged areas, especially lacking access to staples like internet in our schools and public libraries, not to mention the inability to participate in important innovations such as telehealth. In short, the 35 rural counties of RCRC are heavily interested in bringing broadband to our communities, but this bill does not do that. This bill does not increase deployment in rural areas. In fact, it has a perverse incentive for wireless carriers for building in urbanized areas. The sponsors have stated this is necessary for the deployment of 5G. 5G does not have to mean loss of local control. The cap on leasing rates is necessary so that they can save money in urban areas. I don't think that's needed. But first, not only is 5G technology not available until around 2020 at best, that technology can only work if small cell facilities are in close proximity to each other, like an urban area.
Yes.
In Humboldt County, we've successfully negotiated fair market value with providers. The funding is vital to providing communication services like radios for our sheriff's deputies, road crews, and volunteers. The cost of this bill to our community is too much. There's too much urgency as getting this bill through this year. We respectfully ask that this committee hold this bill so that the holistic, inclusive, and substantive conversations about broadband deployment can be heard over the interim. Thank you very much. I urge a no vote.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandy Maurer. I'm the director of the EMF Safety Network. We are strongly opposed to SB 649 based on the science of wireless harms. Over-the-counter permits would eliminate local review and deregulate the telecom industry. Who will oversee and ensure compliance with the rules of this bill and with FCC and other laws? SB 649 abandons the public to trust the telecom industry to certify radiation safety. Please address this lack of oversight and the health implications of putting cell towers in every neighborhood. The technology of the future that would enable faster and more secure connections and be more protective of public health and nature needs to be wired. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for hearing me today. My name is Barb Stanton, Councilwoman from the town of Apple Valley, two-time mayor. I've heard a lot of things today. I'm here in opposition, but I heard from the telecommunications that it's going to be balanced framework. But balanced for who, really? Are all of our constituents going to receive a reduction in their rates because of the loss of revenue that's come to our communities, or the benefit to the communications companies and their reduced rates? How are we going to benefit? Something else I gathered here is local control. And what I also heard was location control. I ask that you amend and think about really allowing communities to retain their ability to say yes and no, but also the right of way, that we don't allow telecommunications to move into any areas that they want to. I ask that you think about this in the carve-outs also. I think it's all for one and one for all. There shouldn't be any carve-outs. I respectfully ask you to say no. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Don Gilbert for San Francisco PUC. First, want to say that we have no quarrel with the industry or the technology. We hold both in high regard. Not about that. One thing that hasn't come up is the fact that there's, under this bill, so our SFPUC negotiated in 2014 a master license agreement with the carriers that covers all the issues in the bill, design, fee, etc. Like almost every agreement like this in the state, it has a termination provision. So the elegant way this bill is going to work is the carriers on January 1, 2018 will terminate the agreement, and they will superimpose the terms of this legislation, which they are allowed to, in place of that agreement. That doesn't seem right to us. We negotiated an agreement with the carriers. They rely on contracts to conduct their business. We have a contract here that will be blown up, and the terms, if passed by this body will decide what those terms are. We just don't think that's right. Also, you know, I've read all the analyses of every committee in this bill, and including this one, and I may be mistaken, but I don't recall any third-party validation for the proposition that 5G cannot be successfully rolled out without this bill, because that's the implicit argument for the bill. We have to have this bill to roll out 5G to get all its economic benefits, and we agree that there are economic benefits. We don't agree that that you need this bill to get there. Lastly, Mr. Chair, I just want to actually thank you and the committee for a very fair process. Much appreciated.
Good afternoon. I'm Councilman Kevin Bash, and I'm very proud to be represented by Assemblywoman Cervantes, the hardest working Assemblywoman literally in the state. But I represent every city in her constituency that is opposed to this. I would like to say, first off, I'm going to make this brief, but if this goes through, they'll cancel our contracts, and we will go from $200,000 a year to fund 40% of our parks maintenance to $1,250. What bothers me the most about this entire bill is that whether you are, let me preface this by saying, we hired the first Hispanic city manager in the history of California. We are home to the only wheelchair basketball tournament in Riverside County. The first game played, organized, was in our city. What you're doing, if you pass this, is if you're black, Hispanic, disabled, whatever, if that person wakes up and there's a cell tower 10 feet from their home, they have no voice. And that really bothers me. And I can't help them at all. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. As a teacher, I'm greatly concerned about what's happening to our children. Already in classrooms, they're being overexposed to wireless devices on their smart boards, and children are now required to take, required to take their standardized exams on wireless computers rather than the old wired computers that they used to have. And their skulls are thinner. And if these little small cells are placed in their neighborhoods on top of what's already happening, and they're forced to have almost continuous exposure to this 5G level of radiation, you know, who knows what the consequences are going to be? Why should we take a chance? To me, the health of people is much more important than jobs. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to talk jobs. I mean, jobs should be good jobs, jobs that promote us mentally, spiritually, and in every good way. Okay, it's not money that counts. It's our health. Health is our most important material wealth. So please, you know, think about this. We're talking about 24/7. We're talking about taking away the local authority, and you know, doing something that is definitely harmful to health, according to scientists for wire technology and many studies. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you. Connie Stewart with the California Center for Rural Policy. It's very hard to be up here on this bill because I do work with 35 counties, rural counties, that want to see more broadband. However, I'm concerned that this bill will just expand the digital divide because it doesn't guarantee that high technology will be used in these public right-of-ways. And in many rural communities, there's geographic challenges, and also the exemption on state property and the coastal zone properties creates a situation where there'll have to be discretionary permits for some small cells and not for others. And so that is going to create a situation where there's going to be a lot of holes and gaps in the wireless technology coming out. You know, at a minimum, I think that the committee should include an amendment that studies how this bill is used in the future to make sure that rural communities and underrepresented communities are actually gaining the same kind of benefits and parity as urban areas who are using that. It still wouldn't make me change my opinion on the bill, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do sincerely hope I'm wrong on this, but I've just seen over my entire career rural communities that get skipped and others that get technology, rural communities that pay 3 times the amount of money for the same technology that's put in other places. And so I think we're giving away a little too much public benefit without getting enough, not getting assurances that libraries will be covered in other public spaces. Seconds. Thank you. And assurances that people who do not have resources, like many of the underrepresented people who have already spoken, will get parity. Thank you very much.
We have less than 10 minutes, so the longer anyone's speech goes, the least amount of people in opposition will be able to do testimony. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair and members, Julian DeVos on behalf of the urban counties of California in opposition. I just want to make 3 quick points. This is the mandatory leasing is unprecedented. I've represented counties for 12 years here in the Capitol. I've never seen this type of requirement on counties to lease our property, which is paid for by taxpayer money, to one industry. We're not even talking about multiple industries, just one industry. And to access our property, we have to do a finding before the board and do substantial findings to even access our own property, which we find is a huge overreach. Second, we have an issue with the cap on the rates, especially since we can't negotiate any in-kind benefits or any other contributions like the city of Sacramento recently did by getting free Wi-Fi in the 27 parks. Third, we are concerned about the limited permit and design review. Okay.
I want to be respectful to the speaker, so if we can have everybody tone it down, and I apologize about having to interrupt you.
It's okay. The limited design review, we believe there's very conflicting terms. There's there's terms about discretionary, encroachment, ministerial, and so we just believe that's going to increase litigation between the wireless industry and local government. And in addition, we believe there's going to be increased liability for local government. The bill does not spell out what happens if someone crashes into a pole or there's an accident or there's an issue with that equipment. So for those reasons, we are strongly opposed.
30 seconds.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Marks. I'm director of the California Brain Tumor Association. Few that spoke in support of this know the science, know the victims like I do. We focus on prevention of primary brain tumors, which are sadly dramatically increasing in young people with ubiquitous use of cell phones and an increase in cellular facilities. There are thousands of independent, not industry funded, but independent studies showing a correlation between cellular radiation from towers and serious health effects, including cancer, neurological damage, and a lot of different things. The $25 million United States National Toxicology Program study released this year found the 2G radiation causes brain tumors and tumors near the heart. We do not advocate against this technology, yet we must find a better solution to balance the need for technology and save our most precious resource of all, human life. The American Academy of Pediatrics has expressed concerns to the FCC that children, and that could be your children, my grandchildren, are especially vulnerable to this radiation. Few here, I said before, know the science like I do. This could happen to us. Please do not risk that this happen. Think tobacco and asbestos. And when you hear this industry speak, they are using the tobacco playbook. Please do not let that be your legacy, I beg of you. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello. My name is Ira Brown. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I have glioblastoma brain cancer. I was diagnosed in 2011. I was an excessive cell phone user, 5, 6, 7 hours a day consistently for years, and I got glioblastoma from that thing. Basically, I'm a caution optimist. I do believe I have to go a little slow because my brain doesn't work like normal people's do because of my tumor. But I'm not against progress. I'm just against dangerous progress. I know for a fact that people with diseases like cancer and glioblastoma brain cancer do not want anything in their lives to aggravate their condition and make it reoccur on them. If you would only know how much you had to go through to survive this disease, you would rethink this technology. There's other ways to make it safe. You could do landline. You can create an infrastructure of optical. You can create even more jobs, more workforce with creating an optical infrastructure for these companies. Having it close, it's very nerve-wracking for glioblastoma brain cancer patients. Thank you very much for your time, for our children. Thank you.
Charles Cooper, resident of Sunnyvale, California. I'm strongly against SB 649 because it takes local control away. The local governments are the one who know best what's going on with their constituents. As someone who suffers from EHS, I depend on local control. Because if my community decides to put a cell tower in my backyard or my neighbor's backyard, I can move to another community where I know the cell towers are. If corporations decide where those towers go, I will have to move to Timbuktu, California. And most likely I will not have broadband access and I will be out of a job. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Antoinette Stein, Environmental Health Trust, And this is California, and I live in Berkeley, California. Please don't sell our children short. This is the disadvantaged communities and equity issues that we have. You're a communications committee, and you all know that what we really, really, really need is graphics. This broadband and these mobile wireless is not going to be secure, accurate, reliable, and able to support the GIS. I have a PhD in environmental engineering. We really, really need the graphics. We need to build out our fiber, and we need to put people to work in fiber and not have this frivolous, clutter, foolish, short-sighted schlock. It doesn't belong in California. Thank you.
Just want to remind everybody we have about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left, so you might want to limit your comments so others can speak.
Sure. Steve Cruz, I'll move quickly on behalf of the city of San Jose and Mayor Liccardo. He was here last week to testify, and local government couldn't make it today. I think what he would want to make sure and share with this committee is that the city is all about expanding digital broadband and 5G. They have programs underway to do that. They currently negotiate these leases with the telcos and use revenue for the purpose of closing the digital divide. This bill would take those tools away from them. And I understand, I know that the author, he's supportive of these objectives as well, but there's nothing in the bill that would commit to, low income rates for internet access to folks, to some of the in-kind, the ability to do in-kind agreements is taken away. So nothing to require that certain under-resourced areas are served. So we support what the author is trying to do. However, the bill would take away our ability to do what we're doing today. So appreciate it, the committee voting no on the bill today. Thank you.
Chris Lee on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. I'll just align my comments with the previous comments from the League of Cities and our other local government colleagues.
Melissa Immel on behalf of the Boards of Supervisors for the counties of Placer, Butte, Fresno, Kern, San Joaquin, San Luis Obispo, Siskiyou, Solano, Sonoma, and Stanislaus, the cities of Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, Mayor Edwin Lee and the City and County of San Francisco, all in strong opposition. We'd align our comments with RCRC, the League, and others. And also on behalf of the California Transit Association in opposition due to operational, safety, and revenue impacts on transit agencies throughout the state. Thank you.
Mary Beth Brannigan, the Executive Director of the Ecological Options Network, EON, and we want safer, more reliable fiber optics and a moratorium on this push for 5G infrastructure to allow more understanding of the science of the adverse health effects. It's out there. People haven't heard about it yet because of suppression, because of the telecoms using the tobacco industry's playbook. So please vote no and let us approach this more sensibly.
We have about a little over a minute left, so I just want to remind folks.
Harry Lehman from Novato, California. My life has been for 4 decades as a trial lawyer doing scientific proof cases. I've already submitted to each of you correspondence that references numerous annotations showing as a scientific fact that substantial dangers are presented. Many people here have doctorates in law. You understand the idea of the reasonable prudent person. It is not prudent to pass this. It is negligent to pass this. But if there are 50,000 new cell towers in the state, that's going to be 50,000 instances of dangerous conditions of public property. The litigation of that will be a field day for the trial lawyers and a disaster, catastrophic disaster financially for the state. Please put this on hold and study it. Thank you. Don't vote yes. Please vote no. Thank you.
41 seconds left.
In the interest of time, I will align my comments with our local government colleagues, and the following 24 cities are in opposition: Oakland, San Leandro, Walnut Creek, Palo Alto, Emeryville, Berkeley, San Pablo, Santa Ana, Hayward, Hesperia, Tulare, Buena Park, Laguna Beach, Imperial County, Placentia, Mission Viejo, Stanton, Brea, Fullerton, Huntington Beach, Mariposa County, Mendota, South San Francisco, and Pismo Beach.
Mark Graham, Sacramento Smart Meter Awareness. I don't know if the committee has considered this. This bill will create a net loss for the state of California of approximately $625 million, according to my estimate. I've emailed this flyer to the office of each member and to the sponsor. Most of the losses will be due to declines in property values as a result of having one of these small cells placed outside your house. and the rest could be loss of...
If the sergeants would please remind everyone time's up on the 30 minutes of opposition that made a commitment to. We will have the additional witnesses support, additional witnesses in opposition momentarily. During this time, I'm going to ask all these opposition witnesses who are seated here to please vacate the table. I'm going to ask the author and the main sponsor to remain where you're seated. At the same time, I'm going to request that the sergeants begin the teleconference opposition, which are 3 people, and the sergeants will operate, monitor, and administrate that. Comments on the opposition on the telephone will be only 2 minutes. I will do the same thing, read off the 30 seconds. Maybe if the sergeants will give me a second to remind the callers of the instructions before they begin.
Hello, Trevor Martin speaking.
Hi, can you please identify yourself? This is Miguel Santiago, Chair of the Communications and Conveyance Committee. I want to remind you that you have only 2 minutes to testify in opposition via telephone conference. I'll remind you 30 seconds before and ask you to end your statement promptly at 2 minutes. You may begin and identify yourself should you wish.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman of the committee. I'm Professor Trevor Marshall. I have a PhD in the mechanisms of diabetes. I'm a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers and a fellow of the European Association for PPPM Medicine. I'm president of California's Autoimmunity Research Foundation. I bring expertise in both the medical and wireless technologies under discussion here. Last year, I and my colleagues published a paper which reported 2 of our own studies. We found that human beings who have a chronic disease are extremely sensitive to the radiation sb649 would encourage. The World Health Organization's former Director General, Dr. Gro Harlem Brundtland, has publicly reported that digital wireless radiation is a hazard to public health, stating that she has no doubt that humans are being negatively affected. We have to hope that it doesn't turn out too seriously, she says. But our own studies show that a majority of people with chronic illness are made more ill by the wireless radiation, which SB649 will permit in California's residential zones. 60% of American adults currently have at least one chronic illness. While only a small fraction of this 60% currently realize that wireless radiation is making their illness worse, this fraction is growing rapidly. It will be impossible for these individuals to avoid the radiation coming from the small cells, which will be allowed in their neighborhoods.
You have 30 seconds.
Many will be forced to move out of their homes. I understand the science, and I know that small cell infrastructure is not technically necessary for the deployment of 5G technologies. If you vote against this legislation, wireless infrastructure will not be harmed, and neither will the public health. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now... There will be no clapping during this committee. You may, as traditionally done in the assembly, raise your hands and you can wave them, and that signals that you are clapping. We are now going to the next witness in opposition via telephone conference, which the sergeants will administrate, and the same process.
Hello?
Hi, this is Miguel Santiago, Chair of the Communications and Conveyance Committee. Wanted to hear your testimony in opposition via teleconference. You have 2 minutes only to state your opposition. I'll remind you 30 seconds before those 2 minutes are up, in which I will ask you to conclude your comments. The sergeants, if you do not conclude your comments, will remove the mic.
I couldn't hear the last thing you said, sorry.
Sure. you will be given a 30-second warning, at which time you'll ask to conclude your comments. If you do not conclude your comments, the sergeants will then pull away the microphone.
Okay, that's fine.
You can identify yourself, please, and begin your statement. Thank you for participating.
Thank you. My name is Jolie Andrzakis. I live in District 2, Jim Woods District, Chairman of the Health Committee. I am electromagnetically sensitive and environmentally induced illness. I have a full medical diagnosis by a neurotoxicologist for electromagnetic sensitivity, especially microwaves, and I have been receiving Social Security disability insurance since 2003. At great personal risk to myself, I decided to meet with Chairman Jim Wood at 8:30 on June 14th, which I did in the presence of witnesses. I handed Chairman Wood my medical records of my electromagnetic sensitivity in a 1998 California Health Department study, properly conducted research showing 3.5% of Californians were affected by electromagnetic radiation. This was prior to the time when there were many cell phones before wireless and smart meters. Now the figure would be at least double. I told Chairman Wood that if sb649 was passed and any microwave transmission and its refrigerator-sized power supply cabinet were installed any closer than 1 mile from my home, I would be forced to move and would likely become homeless from sb649. Chairman Wood dismissed the evidence I showed him. I asked the Health Committee to evaluate the proven harm caused by microwave radiation in residential areas. I was sick with brain inflammation for 1 month after meeting with Chairman Wood. I am only now getting my memory back. I hope you will please understand how serious this step is for the future health and life of Californians and children. And
You have 30 seconds.
Done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for participating.
Hello.
Hi, this is Miguel Santiago from the Communication and Conveyance Committee. I want to thank you for your participation. We are calling you to teleconference you in opposition of SB 649. You will have 2 minutes only to state your statement of opposition. At 30 seconds, I will remind you that your time is coming to an end. You'll be asked to finish up your comments. If you do not finish them up, we will the sergeants in the room will take away the microphone from the phone, and we will end it. So I want to thank you for your participation. You can self-identify and begin your statement in opposition, and thank you for participating.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Heisler. I am a healthcare provider. My life was shattered when 17 wireless smart meters were installed outside my condo, causing heart palpitations, chest pain, arrhythmia despite a healthy heart, and insomnia and skin rashes. Over 6 weeks, my symptoms rapidly progressed until the last night when my heart became highly irregular and flatlined multiple times. I abandoned my home immediately. Wireless forced me out of my home, my private practice, losing friends, loved ones, essentially my whole life. From 2010 until 2016, I had to move 14 times. Far from cell towers, smart meters, Wi-Fi, all cause stabbing pain, cardiac symptoms, and other problems. Top cardiologists urge me to live far from all microwave radiation sources. I've spent the last 7 years alone, unable to participate in the life and daily activities we all take for granted, all due to a forced environmental hazard of unregulated growing wireless radiation. I have lived a nightmare. I am unable to work this whole time. My finances have been depleted. So far, this disaster has cost me over $1 million in loss of income, housing, and medical expenses. Shocking head and chest
You have
pain,
30 seconds.
arrhythmia, and cardiac disease appear only around wireless. SB 649 would destroy my life. Again, I would be forced to abandon a safe home. My 85-year-old parents now live with me. I'm their caregiver. They will be homeless and uncared for if I have to run for my safety like a fugitive. I will have nowhere to go. Radiation harms us all. 5 of my doctors have been injured by wireless. It can kill. It is your responsibility to protect my life. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge 7 members in the room who are participating on this committee and establish a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Santiago?
Here.
Santiago here. Obernolte? Here. Obernolte here. Bonta? Here. Bonta here. Cervantes? Here. Cervantes here. DeBobne? Eduardo Garcia? Holden? Lackey? Here. Lackey here. Lowe? Mainshine? Patterson? Rodriguez? Here. Rodriguez here. Wood? Here. Wood here.
I want to now move to additional witnesses in support. I will remind everyone, and I'll remind the opposition as well, only name, organization, and position. Anything beyond that, I will have to ask you to stop, and we will turn off the mic. All additional witnesses in support may line up now. I apologize.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Moira Top here on behalf of Orange County Business Council in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, Mike Montgomery, Congress of California Seniors. We support the bill. Thank you very much.
Juan Garcia on behalf of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce in support. Thank you.
Chair Member Sean Rondo with the California Peace Officers Association in support.
Les Shepard, representing the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, in support.
Aaron Levi on behalf of Crown Council in support.
Argelia Leon on behalf of Latin Business Association and the Regional Hispanic Chamber of Orange County in support. Thank you.
My name is Wafa Barashid, and I want you to know that I was in...
Name, organization, and position only, please.
I'll tell you. Not for it. Thank you.
At this time, I want to move to additional witnesses in opposition, and I'll remind everybody the same thing. Name, organization, position only. Anything beyond that, we'll turn off your mic.
Jonathan Clay on behalf of the County of San Diego and the City of Encinitas in opposition.
Maxine Mantel on behalf of the City of West Hollywood in opposition.
Bob Naylor on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors in opposition.
Eric Windheim, Certified Building Biologist, EMF Solutions in oppositions.
Evidence in support.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, members, David Jones in opposition for the cities of Burbank, Murrieta, the cities of Marin, Santa Rosa, Pasadena, and San Marcos. Thank you.
Audrey Durfer on behalf of Sacramento County, San Mateo County, and the Association of Environmental Professionals.
Michael Arnold on behalf of the cities of Oxnard and Redondo Beach in opposition.
Karen Perkins for Parents for a Safer Environment in opposition.
Don May in opposition to SB 649 for children.
Lori Stazak, the group of Stazak family in opposition.
Diana Rude from Moms Across America in opposition.
Good afternoon. Elizabeth Espinosa here on behalf of the Boards of Supervisors in the counties of Los Angeles, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Colusa, and Riverside. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Paul Gonzalez representing 58 cities throughout the state. I will do everyone a favor and not list all of them, but we are opposed.
Hello, members of the committee and chairman. I'm Stephanie Thomas of the Wireless Radiation Education and Defense in opposition.
Laura Parr on behalf of the cities of Long Beach, Riverside, and San Carlos in opposition.
Benjamin Palmer on behalf of Marin County and Contra Costa County in opposition.
Kirk Blackburn on behalf of the cities of El Centro, Santee, Inglewood, and La Cañada Front Ridge in opposition.
Bill Alio for the Environmental Working Group and also representing Sierra Club California and California League of Conservation Voters. Thanks.
Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the Utility Reform Network, or TURN, in opposition.
In opposition, Kate Bernier. I represent the EHS group as I won a judgment in a California Court of Appeals for my electromagnetic sensitivity. So I will sue you if you pass this bill.
I'd ask the sergeants if there's any additional witnesses in opposition that we line them up at this point. There are none recognized. Now I'm going to go to question and answer for committee members. So I'm going to call the following witnesses, as I imagine there'll be a number of questions from committee members. On the support side, I'm calling Mr. Carlson, Mr. Devine, and Mr. Roman. On the opposition, I'm calling Council Member McGostin, Mr. Maisry, and Mr. Verdugo. I believe we're missing Mr. Roman, who would sit next to... Oh, I apologize. I didn't see you coming up. And Ms. Stewart. Would you kindly escort Ms. Stewart up here? I just want to remind folks around the table and our colleagues that we'll try to adhere to traditional etiquette on the dais, that we speak through the chair, and that we won't go into a back and forth. Because I got to imagine there's a lot of questions, so maybe if there's a question and a follow-up question, and we'll go to our next colleague just to be fair to everyone, if everybody wants to be okay with those sort of ground rules, just to be in fairness to everyone. And we may begin if anyone's got any questions. If I can say, Mr. Orwell-Norty, if you're okay with that, and then I'll begin with Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to start by thanking the author and all of the parties on both sides of this bill for all of the intelligent and lively discourse, not just in this hearing, but over the last few months as this bill has made its way through the committee. This is not an easy bill for any of us on the dais because we represent people on both sides of this issue. It's certainly not an easy bill for those of us who have served in local government, which is most of us. It's not an easy vote for me because I was on a city council. I was a mayor of a city in California. I've got letters of opposition from 6 of the 7 cities I represent, as well as my county. I have to tell you that has never happened on a bill that in a committee that I've sat on so far in my time in the legislature. So I recognize the strong feelings on this issue, and I know that we have all spent hundreds of hours preparing ourselves for the vote that we're going to take today. So I don't want anyone to think that this is something that we approach lightly. When you come and you meet with our staff, we try and accommodate you. When you give us something to read, we read it. And so we really have taken very seriously the implications of this bill. I also want to set the record straight on some things because, and this is, I had a conversation with one of the mayors of my cities, and I said exactly this morning. This is not a new thing that we're debating here today. This idea of granting access to public right-of-ways for wireless. For the last 100 years, it's been California state law that we grant access to wired telecommunications facilities, and what we're debating here today is whether or not to extend that right to wireless. And the reason why we're having this discussion is this advent of 5G. It's much higher frequency, which is why some of the testimony has been so vehement. But it's also much less range. It just has to do with the physics of the way transmission works. And therefore, we've got to have many, many more of these cells spaced much more closely together. And you quickly realize that the public rights of way are the only game in town if you want to deploy that kind of technology. And that's why we're having this discussion today. Senator Hueso, I want to commend you and your staff. You have been really incredibly gracious with both of your time and your patience as we work through all the issues on this bill. When we started talking 2 months ago, I had 3 big problems with the bill. One problem I had is that we had a large portion of the bill that dealt with non-small cell technologies, And about a month ago, you took an amendment to completely eliminate that section, so I want to thank you for that. Another problem that I had is that it didn't seem like the initial structure of the bill would have allowed for in-kind agreements between local governments and the carriers that provide things like wireless service and internet service to public parks, as an example. And just last week, you amended the bill to make it clear that that is allowed as long as both parties are in agreement, and I think that that was a great step in the right direction. I do have one major concern, though, that remains with the bill, and my concern is this, and it's born out of my experience in local government. When I was local mayor, we completely redid the appearance of our downtown, and we replaced our streets, our curbs, we put in new planters and new walkways and new street lighting with new light stanchions. And I would imagine that if I was still sitting on a local city council, I would want to have something to say about the appearance of the location of the telecommunications equipment that was installed. And I think that those in local government have a lot better idea about what the standards of their local communities are and what will work for those communities than any of us here sitting in the legislature, and than anyone sitting in governance on a carrier, a wireless carrier. And so I want to make sure that we are not writing them out of decisions regarding those things. And so I would like to ask you, Senator, if you would commit to taking an amendment on the bill and working with me on that amendment to clarify that you use the term feasible design standards at several different places in the bill. And I want to make sure we clarify that feasible design standards includes reasonable standards on the appearance and the locations of that wireless equipment.
And first of all, I want to thank you for the comments you made. I think they're extremely accurate, and I share not only the concerns you've expressed, but also your description of this bill and this process has been accurate. One of the things I want to point to, I don't know if you've gotten this this photo here. Have you gotten this? It's a photo that says small cell location examples, and it goes through a series of different lampposts, and it shows how this technology can be integrated in a lamppost. We've had other examples shown by other people about how this either currently looks and how potentially that could be what is unrolled. I just want to join you in ensuring that there are rigorous design standards in place to make sure that these antennas are worked into our community in a way that's not obtrusive. But I also want to work with you, and I want to, as a body, hold them accountable for this photo, because this photo says a lot to me. When I look at this, I say, "Wow, I would never even know unless I'm being told or instructed that this is an antenna that's radiating frequency." If you look at it, I think most people would agree this is almost not even visible. If this is what they're using as a tool to promote this bill today, I would hold them accountable to that and say, you know what, we want to remind you that you were circulating this photo in conjunction with passing this legislation, and that should be incorporated into the record. And I want to work with you to make sure that something like this is eventually what we see in our community, because I don't know if you'll agree with me, but this is hardly visible if it's designed in a way that incorporates into lampposts that looks this way. And I think generally people in the community would agree this is an attractive way to incorporate a technology into the community without creating a blight. But I would love to work with you. If there's something in particular in language that you think that we can do to strengthen the local entity's right to enforce some design standards on the industry, I'm all for that. I think you and I share that in terms of a goal.
All right. So we're going to work together to amend the bill to clarify on appearance and location.
Absolutely.
All right.
And hopefully you and I can agree that this should go into the record as part of this process.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for that, and thanks for the generosity that you've shown in your time. With that, I'll be supporting the bill today.
Thank you.
I want to ask Mr. Rodriguez to follow up with his questions, and then Ms. Cervantes, if that's okay with the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I had a couple questions real quick. Hopefully I can get to them quickly. Obviously, I shared a lot of concerns as my colleagues talked about local government. I also come from local government. There's always a challenge when we're there down our local levels to deal with issues coming forward with us, and that we do have a right at the local level, right? That's why people elect us in the city councils as mayors and council members, to do what's best for our communities. And we see bills like this, it kind of depends who you talk to, I guess, that control at the local level is taken out. And I want to be rest assured that no matter what we do, whether it's with this industry or any other industries, that we have to make sure that the locals have the control as the people put them in there for those reasons. If I can ask a question to somebody that spoke here, representing one of the cities, Cyrus Devers, is he still here?
From the microphone, if that would be okay. Thank you.
So, Cyrus, you talked before in meetings with my staff and me, and you mentioned that you disagree that the bill provides for full cost recovery for local governments. Why do you see that?
Thank you, yes. And so the bill tries to crib off a previous piece of legislation, 1027 by Assemblywoman Buchanan from 2011, which set out cost recovery on utility poles when there are attachments to them. Well, that bill laid out a list of cost recovery measures that were supposed to, and do, provide for full cost recovery if you are allowing this attachment. This bill only picks up a couple of the items from that list. So on paper, there are at least 3 items of recovery from the Buchanan bill that aren't incorporated into this bill. So on paper, I can show you how it's not full cost recovery. But of course, reality is actually far worse. You're putting some obligations on these cities to be utility owners or utilities, act like utilities. They can do their regulatory permit process, but that doesn't cover the responsibility of being an owner of the pole. That involves engineering. That involves looking at the pole, observing the site. That's not a regulatory cost. So your permit recovery fees do cover your regulatory costs, but then in addition to that, there's the business of owning a pole, having to negotiate leases, having to manage those leases and maintain them. There's no cost recovery for that. And that's why this is going to bleed into cities wanting to get out from under these obligations and just divest themselves of these streetlights.
Can I have the sponsor supporters who can talk about that? If there's, what is their impression of that? Impression of that? If that's something
I completely disagree. I mean, we took the statutes from the Buchanan language in their entirety. In addition to that, we added $250. So in a case of a regular telephone, for example, if you applied the Buchanan language, that would probably translate on a telephone pole to about $30. For a lamp post, we did some math that in some instances that fee can go up as far as $1,000. So these cities will be completely made whole for that attachment to whatever that resource is. Now again, that vertical resource may vary enormously, depend on the cost of installation and maintaining that resource. So I can only use the examples of a telephone pole because generally the costs associated with them are the same. Lamp posts vary because the lamp post can be very tall, can be very small. It can have a lot of ornamentation. If it's in a historic district, it can be found to be exempt under this bill because you can't probably feasibly incorporate an antenna into a lamp post. But the assertion that this bill does not make the city's full cost recovery, that full cost recoverable, I don't think is reasonable. First of all, this is the first time we've heard of this, and not only that, but we have worked hard to make sure that every element of the Buchanan bill is in there, plus an additional $250. So when we're looking at cities coming here saying that this bill is going to cause them to lose revenue, it can't technically do that because they're not getting revenue from this program because it doesn't exist. But this program will, at a minimum, if 50,000 antennas are put up, and we can average the cost of the utility pole to $100, which I think is going to be very low per resource, we're looking at $17.5 million statewide of revenue for local government. So, I can say a lot more, but generally, I think his statement is completely false. And you can look at the statute and talk to the committee consultant whether that's accurate or not.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just ask one more question. I didn't get to get other folks. So I know you've been taking some amendments and looking at, clarifying the language in the bill and make it more appeasable, I guess, to the folks of opposition. But obviously today hearing there's still a lot of issues out there. And I'm kind of looking at this once again from my position on the local level. So I can look to support your bill, but I just need reassurance and I need a commitment from you and the author and the sponsor that they can make an amendment that clearly states that the local governments have discretion on location, time, and aesthetics of these small cells. Because without that, I don't think I can support the bill. Because once again, that I think from what we've been hearing, the testimony is the lack of local control. So I just would like to see if that would be something you would be willing to take.
Let me just try to understand, because currently the bill only governs vertical structures in the public right of way. It doesn't govern the city buildings, their fire stations, lifeguard stations, only those vertical structures in the public right of way. And I think it's important to identify that, because overall, working with the cities, they'll be able to work out this. This will only be a very, very small number of resources within a city. These companies will need to sit down with the cities to negotiate full coverage of areas where they have, a large customer base or customer demand. So where there is customer demand, they're going to have to find other ways, and that is outside of the bill. They can still sit down with the cities and say, we want access to these other assets that are within your control, and that they can negotiate any kind of agreement with that. So my concern with I don't understand what you're asking, so I just wanted to clarify how the bill works so we can understand each other in terms of what we're talking about. But if you begin to say, well, the cities can pick and choose where you put this, I just want to understand what the reason that is for. Because what if there's a customer base in area and cities decide we don't want to put it here? It kind of defeats the entire purpose for the bill, and you pretty much undermine the bill's ability to be rolled out. And I just want to understand what you're asking.
I think just with that, just the way the bill is written, I think it just depends who you talk to, I guess. But for me, I don't think it clearly states that the local should have the discretion, right? Because once again, like you said, well, if they have the discretion and they don't want to put them, well, then really that's up to the city. Then they lose out in a sense, and that's their problem, right? To talk to their constituency in that city that, hey, we may not have this extra technology as we talk about because we don't think it's right. You hold those local levels accountable because they know communities better than we do, right? They're in the trenches day in and day out. So the only way, like I said, for me to get my support and my vote is if you can take an amendment that clearly states that, hey, you know what, the local levels do have at least discretion over the location, the time, and the aesthetics of these, because without that, I think that it's going to be very hard for me to support.
They create the design standards. They create the plan. They can deny a permit if it doesn't conform to their standards. I mean, we have given local governments every tool to protect the aesthetics of how these are placed in the community and whether they're going to approve the application of the applicant one way or another. So they retain a lot of influence in how this is done. Mainly, we have tried to design the bill around trying to limiting the cost of implementing this program. This is where specifically where they are opposed. No matter what we've done, that's why I am more than willing to put in very aggressive language on the design guidelines, because that's where I think we can ensure that we protect all our local communities from a very unsightly addition to a vertical structure where they may be working very, very hard at the local level to make their communities attractive, and here we come with this unsightly technology. I don't want that to happen at all. If that's what resulted in my bill, I wouldn't push this issue. That's why, again, I'm seeing really beautiful photos. If they can deliver on this, this is what we should promote. But again, this will be considerable revenue for the cities, considerable revenue, and full cost recovery, and additional, $250 per pole, and with all the design guidelines. So in that area, I'd love to work with you on that to make sure that they retain the power in those areas. But as Assemblymember Obernolte mentioned, this is not the first time this has been done. When you have an overriding public need, the state has come in to require public assets to be put into use. It's been done before on 2 or 3 different occasions. This is not the first time. So in that area, it's wrong. We've done it before at the state, and we've gotten great results out of it in terms of unrolling this technology. And what we don't want to create is any particular roadblock in making sure this is unrolled statewide as much as we can.
Mr. Rodriguez, would you be okay if I maybe ask Mr. Cervantes to continue with some questions?
Go ahead.
And then we'll come back to you right after Mr. Wood, if that's okay with you. Thank you. Mr. Cervantes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to my colleagues as well. I first think we could all acknowledge that this is a difficult bill. As you heard from my friend from Big Bear mentioned, I also heard from every city in my district who is in opposition, all 5 cities. And so I don't take that lightly. I do understand the need for improved infrastructure as well. One of the shared concerns that I have is the aesthetics as we're discussing. And so I appreciate your commitment in moving forward to address that concern. I do want to, maybe as a follow-up, get your thoughts on what I've seen in other cities to mass these large equipments through art projects, public art projects. Would that be feasible under this bill?
Well, again, when it comes to kind of a lamppost, you're looking at something here that is probably not that visible. So it depends on each city. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that, to be honest with you, because I'm sure that could be done. It's been done before, but art, can be very expensive as well, depending on the art. So that's why I'm not certain, how to answer that. I'm sure there are ways that cities can work with. I know they have maintenance assessment districts, and they have P-bids that do kind of enhance lampposts and add banners to that, and there's always a way to hide the stuff when you have a local program that already does that. And there's nothing to preclude cities from advocating for that as well. I just, in terms of, that'd be a good question to ask in terms of with the feasible side of this. I mean, right. Some artwork can be very expensive. So, but did you want to take a stab at that?
Mr. Chair, if I may. Ms. Cervantes, Assemblymember Cervantes, you mentioned that these were large facilities in your comments. The bill actually defines it so that they're small facilities, so when we're talking about the small cells, we're actually talking small. But also, I want to articulate that the bill specifically states on page 6, lines 15 through 24, with regards to the the vertical infrastructure that cities are going, that the bill requires the cities to provide for attachments, that the cities will do that, will make them available under fair and reasonable fees subject to the requirements of subdivision D and terms and conditions which may include feasible design and co-location standards. That particular language right there provides the cities with sufficient flexibility to enter into negotiations to deal with the potential for some art and other co-location standards is how do you actually place these facilities on that vertical infrastructure that the cities own.
So just to follow up on that, just the way I read it is that the feasibility design standard in Section 2 falls short of allowing aesthetics to be considered.
I don't. Who wrote that?
It's right here, page 6 in the bill.
Where?
So that was my read, and so I wanted to get your take on that as it relates to my concern.
Not necessarily. I mean, because you have to go through a design process. Absolutely. The cities set the standards.
So if I could just ask one more question. So I understand that there was a discussion of promoting wireless coverage in disadvantaged communities in the local government committee. However, it appears that no amendments were taken to ensure historically underserved communities, such as the ones that I represent, that they would benefit from this bill. How can we ensure that 5G expansion gets implemented in many of these areas across the state?
Well, first of all, we have the Advanced Services Fund, a bill that was passed by the Assembly that's in my committee that also creates a process to serve underserved communities. And that's a separate bill, but what it does is traditionally we have gone around federal standards that prevent us from obligating telecommunication companies from putting up antennas where there is no local government, there's no government in the state, and go to them and say, you must set up service here. It can't be done. There is no process for that. But the Advanced Services Fund is that process that we've used to incentivize the placement of these services in underserved areas. But what's important about my bill in particular is one of the things that we haven't done historically is find ways to substantially reduce the costs associated with providing these services to the people of the state. When you have a very high cost of providing these services, that means your monthly phone bills go up to compensate for the cost of providing that services. If it was up to cities, they're like, that's not our problem, that's the state's problem. And what I'm trying to do is trying to keep the cost of providing cell phone service to the people of our community lower. When it's lower, more people will subscribe. When more people can subscribe, these antennas there'll be more demand for this service, and people will be able to get those services put there without a subsidy. Right now, because there are not enough users in a certain area, we have to subsidize the placement of those services in those areas. That's why we created the Advanced Services Fund. The Advanced Services Fund helps us cover that process. But currently, we can put the cities, if that's really a concern of theirs, they can apply some of this money that they get to help enroll this program. There's no reason why they can't get the $17.5 million that they're going to be collecting revenue to help roll this program out in different parts of their community. There's no reason why they can't do that where there is the concern. There'll be some areas that won't have that concern. That this program will come in for full force in those areas where you have a strong customer base. But again, I point to the Advanced Services Fund. I'm supporting that bill. I want it to move forward. Why? Because it's going to help us to fund the gap of areas that are underserved and make sure they have access to these technologies as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, through the chair. So a lot of the cities I represent and the counties I represent are in opposition as well. Not all, because there are a lot of areas in my district that don't have, they have 0G.
Yeah.
And don't have access to anything. Clearly, in about 50% of the district, in my district, when I drive around, I don't have cell coverage. And so any G is a pipe dream for us, and we're concerned about that. When this bill when the proponents for this bill first came to me in January and started talking about 5G, I almost laughed them out of the office, quite frankly, because this doesn't do anything really for my district, except for maybe the city of Santa Rosa, and maybe some other jurisdictions way down the line.
You're right.
And so for me, that's a problem. And I know you mentioned, the high cost of deploying in some of these areas. And, the first 85% is probably pretty inexpensive to do on any project. The last 15% takes a lot more time and a lot more money, and we all know that. And so think about rural electrification. Had we said at some point that it's too expensive to get electricity to people, we'd still have people without electricity in California. But we decided at a federal level to do that and get electrification there. So I still have concerns about basic needs and basic needs in my communities. I wish there was this energy and this turnout to support some of the basic things of rural California. And there aren't a lot of us that represent rural California, quite frankly. And at the end of the day, we are often, I don't want to say steamrolled, but pushed aside in the interest of large urban areas, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So I'll cede some of my time to because of the great comments that Mr. Overnolte made. I appreciate that. I come from local government as well. I'm always concerned about local control as well. In my city that I live in, the light poles in my community are very different than what you have there. Matter of fact, they're glass. They're just all glass on the top. They're very expensive to do. And so anything you put on there is going to be somewhat unsightly. And that's not, unless we convert a big section of town to these are just glass domes. I have, but I'm talking about a glass dome.
Yeah.
That's the top of the pole.
But I'm saying this is very different from that.
Well, I'm going to try to prevent
it is. So I think the design, I think the sensitivity to design and cities being able to have some say in there is valid. It is valid. So I do have concerns about some of that. I hope that, and I will continue, and I have worked since I got here to try to incentivize, to try to find ways to bring along how do we get service to those areas that simply don't have it, in the hopes that someday, before I leave this place, that we maybe have the potential for 5G. We got to get 1G first. One of the things that I wanted to ask, for all these cities that have in opposition, I talked to some of my cities, and I found that when I talked to some of them, they didn't really understand the entire bill completely. And when we talked through some of those issues, they had less resistance once they heard the issues. So I want to ask, did the league offer you amendments? Were you offered amendments?
No.
So there have been no amendments offered by the League of Cities?
Never, not once.
I would say that's a disservice.
Yeah.
Honestly, as someone from local government, I say that was a disservice.
Yeah.
I think that if we're trying to work with cities and trying to address their needs, to not offer amendments to make this a better bill, to make this, is a disservice. And so I would ask, why hasn't the league offered any amendments?
You may answer.
Okay. Thank you,
Chair. Excuse me.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to respond. I appreciate the question and the concern. Ronnie Verdu on behalf of the league. Look, to be, quite honest, there are three things that this bill goes after, and if there were any offer to amend any one of those three things, we'd fundamentally change the principled nature of this bill, and it would set a terrible precedent for the league and the 474 cities that we represent throughout the state to concede on any one of those points, whether it's our discretion or our revenues or the forced leasing of our public property. Let's be clear, SB 649 doesn't really require the furtherance of wireless deployment technology. The only thing that it does is it forces local governments to lease out their public property space. It forces us to cap how much we can charge for those lease rates. And then it forces us to live with equipment. And we could talk about promises and, what we see in photos and what's already out there. But that's not in the bill. And so as much as we like to talk about intent, the only thing that we can do to read the language is read the plain language. And the bill would force us to live with 6 cubic feet worth of antennas, 35 cubic feet worth of associated and ground mounted equipment, with no size or quantity limitations for what they call ancillary equipment. Not only do we lose discretion on that front, but the bill actually has a provision that if a particular facility, whether it's a pole or a public building, because the bill actually applies to public buildings as well, we would actually have to accommodate the facility in order to place the small cell structures at the local government's cost to be reimbursed at a later date by the wireless industry. And we think that that is a clear overreach by the industry, and unfortunately, we are not in a position to be able to offer an amendment that would fix this bill in a way that would be sincere, in a way that would be collaborative with the sponsors, unfortunately.
Well, I guess, through the chair, could I follow up? I guess, I was one of 5 authors who worked, and another author is sitting here right now, who worked on a really contentious issue in 2015 called cannabis. And we worked really hard and really close with the League of Cities. We went back and forth and back and forth. And we continued to do that with the trailer bill and working with the League of Cities. There were amendments offered back and forth. It was a collaborative process. And guess what I'm concerned about here is it doesn't feel like there's that same collaborative process here. It's feeling like, no, we just can't work with you on this. That's what it, so I'm trying to understand. You said that there's issues, but I just don't, if you're really trying to work and help cities out here, and you're not offering any amendments to the author, how are you serving your cities?
May I respond to the question? Thank you. You're absolutely correct. When there are areas for middle ground for the League of California Cities to work on a number of issues. For example, I worked closely on SB1, which is the largest infrastructure package that the state has ever passed, and it was a pleasure to work on that. And there were quite a bit of amendments back and forth that we worked closely with to get that bill to a right place, and we're proud of that. Unfortunately, like I said, for this particular piece of legislation, it's our ability, it's our responsibility to alert our members as to what's going on regarding statewide legislation. And unfortunately, the only thing that we could do on this particular piece of legislation is to oppose. Again, they're going after 3 key issues that are just fundamentally kind of non-starters for the league, and I don't think it would be sincere on our behalf to offer something to the author that would just fundamentally change the composition of this bill.
I would just one last, and I'll end at that. I would just say that I think I would disagree. I think I think you should have offered something. I mean, we ran into multiple walls with the league on cannabis stuff. Multiple walls, and we still figured out a way to work with it, but it was because of a collaborative process. To not offer even what you might think might be a ridiculous amendment to the author and to try to collaborate doesn't feel like you've done your duty to your cities, quite frankly, and I'm disappointed in that as someone from local government, formerly from local government.
The direction that we have from our cities is to outright oppose this bill from our members.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if I see any further questions. I want to make sure I'm fair to the committee members, and I don't see none, so I'm going to close down questions at this time from committee members, and would kindly ask the author to do some closing statements. You don't have to, but you can.
I'm sorry?
I was being facetious. You don't have to, but you can.
Well, I'll just be very brief, and I just want to thank the members of this process for really being the true representatives of their communities, because these amendments have come from members. It's come from us responding to some of the concerns raised by the opposition. I think we've been very responsive, but this is a statewide. This is a program of statewide interest that's going to provide not only service to the people of our community, but jobs as well. And I think those jobs are not going to be just in those areas where this technology is being implemented. This is going to be statewide jobs that affect the economies of every region. And I think it's important to note that. And there have been advocates from almost every industry, whether it's education, nonprofit sector, business. Every single area, you saw the people come and advocate and say they want this. And we also have studies that show that 77% of Californians not only want enhanced service, faster service, but they want us to streamline the process, to cut the costs, and bringing that service to them. Californians overwhelmingly want this. And I'm also very disappointed that I haven't been able to work with the cities to make sure that they can be a partner with us in helping enroll these investments that are going to transform their communities and create jobs in their communities. This is something that we can both work towards and share. And you know, the state of California can't just be the place where we, raise funds to give to the cities to do things. I would like the cities to also be our partners in economic development and partners in education and making all these things happen. This is an opportunity for them to do that, and I just wanted to say that I'm still open to working with them and anyone else that would help make this a better bill. And better meaning a bill that will help to reduce phone bills for the people of our community, because if it's cheaper to put this out in our community, more communities will get this. And I strongly believe that. Just the economics make sense, and more people will be able to afford this service, which means that the customer base will increase. And this is one of those areas where I think we can all kind of help make this a program that's more feasible to bring to our communities. And I ask for your support today in supporting a lot more jobs for California's future and helping to make California a leader in innovation in our state. Thank you for all your work, and thank you for your help.
Thank you. I still would need a motion and a second, and the motion would be do pass as amended to appropriations.
So moved. Second.
We have a first and we have a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Santiago.
Aye.
Santiago, aye. Obernolte.
Aye.
Obernolte, aye. Bonta. Cervantes.
Aye.
Cervantes, aye. DeBobne. Eduardo Garcia. Holden. Lackey.
Aye.
Lackey, aye. Lowe.
Aye.
Lowe, aye. Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Patterson.
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez not voting. Wood.
Aye.
Wood, aye.
Passes at 8-0, and we'll let the additional members add on at a later time.